Hi, welcome to Gabie's Knit Goodies. This is a yarn dyers vlog today. I have a bunch of stuff that I need to wind up into skeins, and I currently do that all manually, so it takes a while. And I thought I would chit chat with you guys about how my journey from hobby to jobby is going in terms of yarn dyeing and selling it on Etsy, as well as a couple of trunk shows that I've done. So I have, as you can see, bunch of yarn here that needs to be wound up into skeins. This is my Ocean Cliffs. I have some Van Gogh in here, Starry Night, some brand new colorways. This is going to be funfetti, like funfetti cake is what it reminds me of, the little speckles in there. Some caramel macchiato on DK. And this is another brand new one, which I think I might call 80s neon. It's so bright and fun and vibrant. I love it. And then some coffee with cream on DK weight, because I wanted some of this for a sweater, and so I dyed some. I'm going to combine this with Dark and Stormy, I think, in Caitlin Hunter's Tecumseh. So I have some more over here, which is the Mexican hot chocolate. So lots to wind up. So it could be a bit of a tiring afternoon here in the next little bit. But it's more fun when I get to chit chat. So that's what I'm gonna do. So my tool I use to wind up skeins of yarn is a giant wooden knitting needle. Sometimes for my mini skeins I have a slightly smaller metal one that I use, but this one works well. It's nice and sturdy for the bigger skeins. And in case you're interested, I think it's a 35, but that doesn't really matter. It's just nice and sturdy, and the end is big enough to hold the yarn on it without being too big that I can't like fold it over. And then I have a handle here on my sunroom door that is a very good size for sliding the yarn on and holding it here. So this one is my lovely Van Gogh Starry Night inspired one. I took a very literal idea of that painting. I do really like this one. So I just put the top on like this. I think I have to screw my chair back a little bit, but then I just twist it until it's nice and snug. And then roll it up, take it off, and then I take the pointy end and put it in the loop that was on that handle of my door, and I keep holding it until I pull it all the way to the end and pull it over. That's why I was saying this end can't be but so big, because I have to pull over this yarn. And then I just pull it out, and I have it all wound up here. It's so pretty. I love yarn. I wish I had more time to knit like with every single colorway all the time. I mean, I would like to knit so many things, and I'm just limited by time, but that's okay. All right, I need to pull over something to put my wound skeins in, and yeah, and then I can wind up more. All right, so I figured that I would chat with you guys about what's been going on in my yarn dyeing journey here. If you are new to my yarn dyeing vlogs, I started dyeing yarn probably a couple years ago now, and I did it because I love hand dyed yarn, and I love nice yarn like merino and Well, merino is probably my favorite, but I also like alpaca. And I like the, I guess the imperfect nature of hand-dyed yarn, like the variations in it, and that every stitch is just a little bit different, even just with like the tonal yarns. I feel like it adds a depth and dimension to my projects. But if you've ever purchased it before, you'll know luxury hand-dyed yarn is expensive, except for when you like, especially when you like to knit sweaters. So that takes a good amount of yarn. And so if you do that out of hand-dyed yarn, it adds up. So I thought I'd give a try to doing it myself, and I discovered that I really enjoy it, and that it takes handmade, hand knits, just to another level for me to do it out of my own hand-dyed yarn. And I'm sure the same would be said if like you had the sheep and you did the whole thing from sheep to sweater. That would be really cool. But I'm not there, both in my space and time right now. But anyways, so I got into dyeing yarn, found out I really liked it, and then decided to open an Etsy shop and start putting it on Etsy. So it's all been a steep learning curve. I guess maybe steep isn't quite the right word for it. If I was trying to make this into a money-making business, relatively in a decent amount of time, then yes, it would be a very steep learning curve. However, like I've said, that I'm turning my hobby into a bit of a jobby, and so the timing is not as big of an issue for me. Like, my husband does support us, and I homeschool my kids. So this is something I hope to learn through that whole learning curve, and I want to very slowly grow the business so that when the kids are independent and out of the house, that I can dedicate more time to it and like have it kick off and have it be more of a, an actual job, as opposed to having to go back to work in an office. I mean, that would be the dream, right? To have a hobby that you turn into a job and you can do it full time. I think that would be awesome. So that is my ultimate goal, but my temporary goal is to really fund my hobby of knitting and be able to knit with the yarns that I love and the colors that I love. And if all goes well, then make a little bit of money so that I can have some relaxed vacations that, money is not as big of an issue because we have a little bit coming in from me as opposed to all just one income. And kids are expensive. So if I can offset some of the cost of their stuff that they do. My kids like to do lots of stuff, and I love to be able to let them do that. Like dance. My girls love ballet. My son loves to swim. So the fact that I can help them pursue those passions of theirs, I love. So, anyways, that's kind of long-winded. I have been dyeing 2 bins at once, usually, which is I dye about 8 skeins. I do 4 in each bin. By bin, I mean my rectangular silver stainless steel bins, and I have 2 burners. I use induction burners, and I dye it in my garage, which helps with, I can open up my big garage door, So I have lots of ventilation, which is nice out there. But because it is a garage, it can get dusty. So I always clean all my stuff or my area before I get going. So it would be nice to have a separate, like, dye studio. But maybe one day, when the kids are out of the house, I could make maybe my sunroom here into a dye studio. So I make very small batches, which works for me right now. But I think that I would like to do one more pan. Then I could do 12 at once. And if we're thinking like doing sweater quantities and stuff, it would be nice to be able to dye that much at once. And I have to say, I feel like I have grown a bit. So having some stock would be nice. Having a little bit more stock would be nice. I've taken this business, like I said, very slowly. So I have tried to only purchase yarn when I had money from my yarn sales in order to buy the bare yarn. So I haven't had a huge amount of stock. So I'm slowly getting to where I can build it up just a little bit more, which makes things easier. If you go ahead and have this stock and you have things dyed, then your shop looks more full. I feel like I need to add some things to my shop right now. Anyways, that's besides the point. So I'm learning, like I said. Eventually, maybe I'll feel like I'm doing enough to where I can have one of those electric yarn winders. So the other stuff I've been doing with the business, which y'all might be interested in, are trunk shows at yarn stores. I have done 2. And what I used to think with the trunk shows was that the yarn dyer went and then, like, you know, all day on a Saturday or something, they were there and they were with the yarn and they were talking to the customers and just selling right then and there and then taking it all home in the evening. But both of the yarn stores that I have done a trunk show with took the yarn for like 2 weeks. And so I brought it, one store set it up themselves and had a display for 2 weeks in the shop. And then the other one, I came and set it up and then came and picked it up a couple weeks later. Yeah, so that was good. Both of those were very good. They weren't huge in terms of money because the shop owners, you know, of course, take money from the sales because they have to run their shop and pay their employees and make some money themselves as well. So you end up, the shop itself ends up taking 40 to 50% of the sale of each yarn skein. So you don't really make much money off of those, but I think that it's good for marketing. That also depends on the shop, of course. But if someone comes in and buys your yarn from a yarn shop and likes it, then they might, you know, seek you out later even when your yarn's not in the store anymore. So that, in that way, it can be marketing. So it's marketing that I'm not losing any money at because I'm still getting paid for the yarn, just not a huge amount. And then the other benefit is some of the yarn stores will advertise on social media. And so you're also getting some online marketing, which could result in online sales as well. So there's definitely a number of benefits. Plus it's just fun to be able to go and see your yarn in an actual like brick and mortar shop and get the feedback from people who may not be shopping online. And I know a lot of people don't like to shop online because you can't see the colors in person, you can't feel the colors or feel the yarn's texture in person. So I totally get that. So I think it's nice. Yeah, it's nice to do them. but it may not be super lucrative. And I have had both yarn stores keep some of my yarn as and buy it as like wholesale, which is kind of the same thing. They take like 50% or something. So in case you're curious about the trunk shows, that's kind of how the ones I have done have worked. And I've done 2 so far, and I have one lined up for next spring, and then I have one that I'm winding yarn for, which is a little bit different because it's one of the stores I did before, but she is going to a yarn festival, and I'm going to bring my yarn to her before she goes to the festival, or a fiber festival. And so she's actually going to sell my yarn at a booth at a fiber festival. So I'm very curious to see how that goes, because I've been to this festival before and love it, and they have sheepdog trials too. It's called the Montpelier Fiber Festival. And so I try to go to it every year. And the last time I went to it, I thought about what it would be like to, get a booth and have my yarn there. And that would be really cool, but it is, going to a vendor show is a lot of work. And this is a 2-day event as well, with a Friday setup. So it would be the whole weekend for sure. It would be a very long, dedicated weekend. And I don't know, it's fairly expensive to get a booth. So I don't know if it's worth it or not. This will be a good test. If my yarn sells really well at her booth, then I'll, I guess, get an idea of, how much money I might make if I just did it myself. Yeah, so I'm very excited about this. I think it'll be fun. But because of that, I have to dye yarn and wind up yarn, and then all of that yarn that goes to her may or may not come back to me, depending on how much she sells. So there's always a risk with trunk shows in that you don't know how much of your inventory is going to come back to you. And if you have an online shop, you have to figure out that piece of it, how much to keep back for your online shop, or how much extra to dye to send away. So lots of unknowns. I mean, I'm sure there will always be unknowns, but the more experiences I have, the less unknowns there will be, right? So this is exciting. I plan on going to the yarn festival. I'm going to be dropping off my yarn for her to bring to the yarn festival and set up in her booth. But then I think on Saturday I'm going to go just for fun for myself with some friends, maybe with my mom, and we'll check out the festival and the sheepdog trials, which is super fun. And I'll get to check out the booth where my yarn's going to be at. So that'll be very cool. I feel more like a professional if I see my yarn in, like, I don't know, in a store and stuff. So this is caramel macchiato on DK weight. I originally dyed this colorway up in DK for the Coast to Coast wrap kit that I have. It has, 5 different colorways in it, I think. That shawl is very cool. And I will probably send that shawl along with all of the yarns that go with the shawl kit to the festival as well, so that she can have a sample to display. Yeah. So anyways, I have done a vendor show myself as well, but it has not been, one thing I have learned is that if it is not a fiber-centered festival, and if it's not the right weather, like nice and cool, then I don't think yarn sells very well. So my last one I did, it was hot, and I didn't sell very much. And I even had hand-dyed cotton yarn, and that didn't sell either. So I think that if the weather is warm, and it's, especially if it's not a festival that's intended for yarn crafters, that it's probably not really worth the time, money, and energy to go to it. Now I am going to try a Christmas market, and I feel like with a Christmas market I might have a better turnout for customers, because people are, it's going to be cold, and yeah, I guess because it's going to be cold, I feel like it's going to lend itself to yarn sales, maybe. What I really need to do is to like knit up a bunch of things to sell, but as you guys know, that takes a lot of time. And then I don't know if that's going to happen or not. So we'll see how that one goes. I'm going to do a Christmas market. I feel like if people know a crafter, a yarn crafter, then a hand-dyed yarn skein would be a perfect gift, because it's kind of a luxury item that they may not buy for themselves. So maybe that's where some sales could come in. But we shall see. Yeah, let me know if you have any questions about my personal journey going from knitting love and yarn love to yarn dyer, and the little ins and outs of trying to market on social media and put your stuff on Etsy and promoting it, and then the yarn stores and trunk shows and all of that. I am not an expert at this point in time by any means, but I am slowly gaining some experience and some experience with it. So I can certainly share I still feel like a total beginner. My beginner experiences with you guys. Also, on the other side, if you are an experienced yarn dyer, then let me know some tips and tricks that you have learned over the years. I'm always open to how to do things better, but without taking up too much tedious time. I had no idea how much time like the online, like social media type marketing takes. It's quite tedious. I love the yarn dyeing. I love coming up with new colorways. Like this one is funfetti. Doesn't this just remind you of like those funfetti cakes? It might be, I don't know if the color is coming out quite right with this bright light on, but yeah, that's the best part. I had no idea I'd love yarn dyeing quite so much, but I really do. It's super fun. So anyways, I am going to continue to wind these up, and while I am doing that, I think I might show you guys, I took some video of the first trunk show I went to, and I don't think I ever actually posted it. So I think I took a little bit of a video of the yarn store, and before my yarn was ever in it, as well as like the little town and driving up to it. It's in a pretty area, in a cute little town. So I think I will show you guys a little bit of that while I continue to dye yarn, and then I will, at the end of the video, show you guys my piles of twisted up yarn. My next step after this is to print out and wrap up my skein sleeves around it. So this one is funfetti. I have some socks that will work for this. Or I have socks that I started with some scrap yarn that I'm going to finish with that. Okay, I will see you guys in a few minutes. I just dropped off a ton of yarn babies at the Knit Wit shop. So I'm hoping that they are successful there and they do well. The shop is really cute, and she has lots of good yarn, as well as like cute other little kits and embroidery kits and cool felted items. Yeah, so I hope it all goes well for the trunk show. We will see in the next week or so. I get my yarn back, whatever doesn't sell, in about 2 weeks. So hopefully it'll be worthwhile. This town is very cute too, so it's kind of fun to be able to come here and check out the shop and drop off my yarn. And I think I'm going to go have a little bite to eat, or maybe just a cup of coffee, and then head home. So I think I'm going to spend a few minutes knitting on my Easy V sweater, because I'm now on the sleeves and antsy to get them done. However, they are taking longer than I want them to. But I think once I get to the color work on the sleeves, that will go by faster. So yeah, that's very exciting. Today would have been the perfect day to wear it, but instead I'm wearing the sweater number 21 by my Favorite Things Knitwear, knit out of my own yarn. I have kits for this on Etsy, but it's the Surrey alpaca, mohair silk, and merino. So, yep. Okay. I will go get a bite to eat and knit a little bit and relax for a couple minutes, and then head back home. Since I talked about it, I figured I'd show you the Easy V sweater and what I've got. So I bound off at the bottom. Guess you need to back up so you can see it all. And then I've got the sleeve going. One sleeve going so far. So I really like this neckline. I'm interested to see how it wears, but it's just a little bit different. So I think that's super fun. I love it. So this is what I wound while I was hanging out with you guys. Ocean Cliffs sock yarn, and I have mini skeins that are brown like this that go with these. And then the caramel macchiato, my brand new 80s neon, that should be in the shop soon. Van Gogh Starry Night, that's already up in the shop. And then my funfetti, that will be in the shop soon. So, yay. So thanks for keeping me company and letting me chat with you guys while I wound up my yarn. Again, let me know if you have any questions about what I'm doing. I'll talk to you later. Bye.